I've been on the dark web for a long time. I'm in my late 20s now, but I realized as a teenager how useful the dark side of the internet could be. I'm not just talking about using it as a source of entertainment, although it certainly is useful for that. No, I'm talking about the grind. I'm talking about business opportunities. I'm talking about ways to make big money, much more than you could make in most jobs. But don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It takes a certain type of person to do what I do, because what I do isn't exactly legal. You do have to learn some shit up front, but it doesn't take nearly as long as going through 4 years of college and then working another 10 or 20 years climbing the ranks of some soulless company that makes non-biodegradable straws or poison chemicals or some other weird like that. Honestly, the hardest thing to learn is how to hide your money from the IRS. It's not easy, unless you have a team of accountants who already know all the tax loopholes. For us little people, it's not easy, but it's doable. This is why I keep a part-time day job. It gives me tax cover so I stay anonymous in the IRS's eyes. And then there's the fact that you have to be adaptable. I don't do just one thing on the dark web. I take many jobs. I wear many hats. This latest one involved getting the blueprints for a certain bank. I couldn't have done the job back when I first started messing around on the dark web. It took some finesse to get it done, but I did it. What the client does with the bank blueprints isn't my problem. I got paid in Bitcoin and I walked away. That was it. Then again, I'm a bit of a rarity as a dark web entrepreneur. I'll do just about anything, whereas most other people like me specialize in one or two things. I spend a little time every day perusing the job boards to see if there are any I want to apply for. And as I'm doing it, I come across a job listing that actually surprises me. The headline reads, "Looking for test subject for experimental medical procedure. Great pay. Huge bonus for ideal subject." The reason it surprises me is because one of the first jobs I ever applied for had a very similar listing. Almost word for word, actually. But in all the years I've been working on the dark web, I've never seen another listing like it. Until now. I click on the listing to get more information. It's pretty much the same as the one from years ago, back when I was just a 16-year-old kid. I read through it carefully, paying particular attention to the amount of money they're offering. Once I've read the job posting twice, I sit back in my chair, shut my eyes, and think about the job. This is my process. The job is posted on a site that's like the dark web's version of Upwork. In fact, it's called Dark Work. Yeah, real original. But there's one big difference. Unlike Upwork, not just anyone can get on Dark Work. You have to be invited. But I managed to get an invite within a year of establishing my presence on a few of the less elite dark web job boards and forums. So I'm considered a top-rated talent on dark work. So if you want to keep that talent badge, I need to be careful about the jobs I take. If I take a job and then don't finish it or mess it up, it hurts my rating on dark work, and I don't want that. So I keep my eyes closed for a good 5 minutes, thinking about the job and what it will entail. I also go over how I got the job done back when I was 16. I cringe, thinking about how sloppy I was, how reckless, how it's a miracle I didn't get caught. I've learned so much since then. Part of me thinks this job is too much of a risk. It's certainly not what I normally do. But the money, I know I can do it. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just risky. It will mean a lot of exposure. But the money. I take a deep breath and open my eyes. Then I reach for the mouse and click the little button that says, Apply. I'm driving east on Interstate 80, passing grimy semi-trucks that are such an integral part of the economy's arterial flow. It's 2 days after I applied for the job and 1 day after I got the job. The interview process was pretty short, given my reputation, and the anonymous reviews from past clients on Darkwork. It culminated in a video call through the Darkwork app, which automatically blurs both parties' faces and distorts their voices. Still, I wore a disguise just in case. The man I talked to gave me the pertinent information after he agreed to hire me for the job. He gave me a detailed description of the kind of test subject they're looking for, along with an address and a phone number and a window of time in which the delivery should be made. I wasn't surprised to learn that the job was to take place in my old hometown. After all, the medical industry has a huge presence there. It only makes sense that some unscrupulous researchers would be performing their illegal work in facilities there. Every industry has people like that. Once the call was done, I loaded up my SUV and hit the road. I drove for nearly 9 hours yesterday before stopping at a hotel. Now I'm just a few hours away from my destination. Once I get there, the real work begins. As I drive, I can't help but go over the first and only other time I did this kind of job. It's strange, looking back at your teenage years. At least it is for me. As a rule, I tend to avoid looking back. You dwell on the past, you miss the present, and shirk the future. It's probably one reason I do what I do. I don't let the past creep in on me. I don't let it occupy my thinking any more than is necessary to learn and move on. But now, as I drive down the interstate with the lulling hum of tires on the road and the purr of the engine putting me into a kind of trance, I think back to that job, and I smile faintly at the reckless folly of youth. While most teenagers would lie to their parents about the party they were going to, or about whether they'd been drinking or smoking while out with friends, I was a little different. I got along pretty well with other kids at school, but I didn't spend much time with them outside of school. I didn't have any close friends. I preferred to spend my free time alone, doing my own things. So when I asked my parents if I could borrow the car to go to a get-together one Friday night, they didn't ask questions. They just said yes. I could see in their faces that they were excited I was finally making friends. I had just gotten my license, so I was legally able to drive. And when I left the house around 8 that night, I actually did go to a party. But I didn't stay long. I just wanted to make an appearance. Then I slipped out and went to meet a kid from school named Nathan. Like me, Nathan was a loner. He was socially awkward and maybe even on the spectrum. So when I approached him earlier that week to see if he wanted to go see a movie, he seemed excited about the prospect. And he didn't question me when I told him he would have to keep it a secret from his parents because I wasn't allowed to leave the house after 9 o'clock. "If you tell your parents who you're going with, you could get me in trouble," I said. "So better to just not tell them at all. Do you think you can sneak out without them knowing?" "Oh yeah," Nathan said. "I walk around my neighborhood at night all the time. They don't know." It was perfect. I couldn't have asked for anything better. So when I pulled up behind the gas station down the road from Nathan's house, I wasn't surprised to see him there waiting for me. He got in the car and showed me the candy he'd bought at the gas station in preparation for the movie. I smiled and pulled out of the lot. When we got on the highway going in the opposite direction of the movie theater, Nathan asked where we were going. I told him there was a new theater. That shut him up for a good half an hour. But when we pulled into an empty parking garage next to a research park, he knew something was up. "Is this a theater?" he asked, although I could tell by his tone that he knew it wasn't. "Yeah," I said, stopping momentarily to grab a ski mask out of the door pocket and pull it down over my head. "It's a movie theater." Nathan looked at me with wide, unbelieving eyes. Fear flooded those brown eyes then. It was like I could see it as clear as blood spilling into water, like the time I'd killed my neighbor's cat out by the stream in the woods. The blood mixing with the water, the fear spreading through Nathan's eyes. I stared at him, waiting for him to do something. It was as though I were detached from the situation somehow, watching from outside my own body like a casual observer, like I was watching a movie, I was at once cherishing the terror that came over him, and yet I was able to note that terror objectively and without emotion. I was two people at once. It was the first time I'd ever experienced something like that, but it certainly wasn't the last. Strangely, Nathan didn't reach for the door handle. He didn't unclip his seatbelt. He just stared at me. Maybe he was two people at once then too. It was a shame neither of them was man enough to do anything. I would have enjoyed a little fight from him. Not that it would have helped. I reached into the door pocket and pulled out a big kitchen knife I'd stolen from a Walmart earlier that week. I pressed the knife blade to his neck and told him if he moved, I would kill him. Then I drove up through the empty parking garage to the 4th level, where there was one vehicle parked there. It was a large white van, a Ford Econoline. Two men in masks got out of the van as we approached. I parked across the aisle, backing into the spot so I could make a quick getaway if I needed to. But I didn't need to. Everything went as planned. Looking back on it, I realized it just as easily could have been a sting. I could have been arrested by FBI agents when I went into that garage. Like I said, I was a stupid, reckless kid. But it all worked out. Nathan blubbered and cried as the men took him. They locked him in the back of the van, paid me in cash, and then left. I drove back to the party and pretended like I'd never left. It was my alibi, and it worked like a charm. Nathan's disappearance was front-page news for about a week before fresher news took its place. The police questioned me at school. Apparently, someone had seen me talking to Nathan at one time or another, but I was ready for that. I had a whole story in the chamber about how I felt sorry for the kid and asked him if he wanted to sit at the table with me and my friends, but he said no. I'd even planted the story among my friend group, so if the police asked around, they would have the thing confirmed. That was it. Nathan never came back. He was gone. Eventually, he was forgotten. By everyone but his parents, anyway. Nothing ever came of it. And that was also when I knew I could make a good living on the dark web. I wasn't wrong. But I'm not a 16-year-old kid anymore. I don't hang around with teenagers, which is what makes this current job more of a challenge. The job is to get a Caucasian male between 16 and 18 years old with a healthy body fat percentage. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. Also not the hardest. It helps that I know the area. I know where kids hang out. Or at least, I know where kids hung out when I was a kid. And it doesn't take long to see that not much has changed. I find a kid that fits the bill pretty quickly, hanging out with friends at a park near the high school. After a few hours of watching and following, the kid finally breaks off from his friends after they go to a nearby coffee shop. He walks along the sidewalk, apparently going home. It's getting late anyway. It's dark out, and the stretch of sidewalk he walks along is secluded. The abduction doesn't take long. It helps that I have a big gun to threaten him with. I get him into the vehicle and then spray an aerosolized tranquilizer into his face. He's out cold in less than a minute. I'm slightly ahead of schedule, so I stop and get a bite to eat on the way to the meeting spot. No sense in going hungry if you don't need to. The meeting spot is behind the mall, which is shut down for good. 12 years ago, it was still going strong, but now everyone gets everything online. Malls like this one are a dying breed, which is why it's such a good meeting place. With nothing in the stores, I'm confident the exterior cameras aren't recording anything. Still, I take my usual precautions before I reach the spot. I change license plates and put false racing stripes down the center of the vehicle. When I'm done with the job, I'll take the magnetic stripes off and trash them. Of course, I also wear a mask, only this time, I'm not wearing a black ski mask. This time, I'm wearing a realistic silicone mask of a light-skinned black guy. Over that, I wear a surgical mask and a ball cap. It's a disguise upon a disguise. I drive around to the back of the mall, seeing that there's a single Ford Econoline van sitting in the parking lot behind the Sears automotive entrance. I cruise up to it slowly, my pistol in my lap. There's a single dark figure in the driver's seat, but I can't make out their features. It looks like a man, given the size and build. I pull to a stop a safe distance away and put the vehicle in park, but I don't get out. I wait for the man in the driver's seat to get out, or maybe someone in the back, but there's no movement. I glance at the kid sprawled on my back seat, still unconscious. Something isn't right here. I look across at the van, still no movement. Maybe he's waiting for me to get out? I think about the money that must be in that van somewhere. I would hate to leave this job now, after I've taken all the risks. Fine, I mutter to myself. I'll go out first. I turn off the interior light so it won't come on when I open my door. Then I step out with the pistol in my right hand. I stay by my open door, looking across at the van. No movement. We going to do this or what? I ask, starting to lose my patience. Still nothing. I step around my door and toward the van. You f***ing with me? I shout. I don't need to put up with this shit. Thinking I'll just take the money from him and go, I stalk toward the van, raising my pistol as I near. But as I get close enough to see some details of the man sitting in the driver's seat, I freeze. It's a dead man. His neck has been cut open, but not recently. There's very little blood on his dark shirt, and none that I can see on the interior of the car. But I don't stick around long enough to find out what the hell is going on. Forgetting about the money, I turn to run back to my vehicle. I hear the crunching of feet on old asphalt from behind me, coming from the back of the van. I turn, raising the pistol as my fear ramps up. Before I can pull the trigger, a huge dark figure smacks me in the face with a tire iron. I lose my grip on the pistol and trip over my own feet. The back of my head slams into the asphalt, and my vision goes black. Even before I open my eyes, I can smell the blood. An air conditioner kicks on somewhere, and I feel a manufactured breeze touch my skin. As I open my eyes with some effort, I look down to see I'm strapped into a wheelchair and wearing only my underwear. Looking around, I see that I'm in a hallway with thin blue-gray carpeting and bare beige walls. There's a dead woman lying in a puddle of dried blood a few feet away. "You're awake," a voice says from behind me. It's a man's voice, raspy and delicate, the words spoken slowly. "I'm so glad." I turn to look over my shoulder at the speaker, but something that feels like a metal hand grabs my head and prevents me from completing the move with a steely grip. "Face forward," the voice says. I do as he says, but not because I'm afraid. I'm not. I'm patient. I can get out of this. I know I can. He removes the metal implement from my head and starts pushing the wheelchair down the hall. "At first I wasn't sure it was you," he says. "The mask you were wearing was very realistic. They didn't have those when we were kids, did they? So it's you," I say, not asking. "Nathan." "Nathan," he says, pronouncing each syllable as if tasting the words. "No, I don't think so. That name means nothing to me." Near the end of the hall, he pushes me through a set of double doors and into the bright lights of a surgical suite. There are 2 dead bodies on the floor, both of them men, both of them brutally murdered. He guides the wheelchair around the 2 bodies and past the surgical bed to the wall. Again, he clasps my head so I can't move it, but he reaches over my shoulder and presses a panel on the wall, which pops open. The hand that he uses, his left one, has strange tubes protruding from it, maroon liquid flowing through them. He punches in a sequence of numbers on the keypad behind the panel. When he's done, there's a mechanical sound and a hidden door pops open from the wall. He wheels me back, making room as the door slowly opens on its own. "This is where I have lived for the last 12 years, he says, still standing behind me. The door has revealed an 8x10 room with a bare toilet and a thin mattress on the floor. It wouldn't pass as a prison cell under the law. It would probably violate a whole host of human rights. If you think I'm going to beg, you've got another thing coming, I say. And if you think I'm going to apologize, you're crazy. I've been given pretty much every disease you can think of over the years. I've been cured of some of them. Others are killing me. I've had my whole body disassembled and reassembled. I've been dead for a grand total of half an hour. I've experienced more pain than most humans who have ever lived. So no, I don't think you're going to apologize. But you will beg. I scoff, but as soon as Nathan stops talking, he steps around in front of me. I look up into his face, if it can be called that, and for the first time since being abducted, I feel terror. Jesus Christ, I say. What the hell? As Nathan smiles, he reaches toward me with his right hand, which is a crude collection of medical implements held together with surgical ropes to make a hand. I'm so focused on that strange metal hand that I don't see his other hand until it darts toward my neck with a syringe. I feel the needle enter my neck. A moment later, he pulls the now empty syringe back. A few moments after that, blackness takes me again. I don't have long to live now, Nathan says. His voice comes out of the darkness as I claw myself back from unconsciousness, fighting against the side effects of the drugs he gave me. So I knew the doctor would be needing a new test subject. I heard him talking about it. I knew that it would be my only chance to make things right. I just never really thought it would be you to bring him another subject. Not after all these years. But no matter who it was, I was going to take my anger out on them. He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. You know, all this time, I didn't think there was any rhyme or reason to the universe. But the fact that you're here now makes me think there is. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I manage to pry my eyes open, and I raise my head and look at myself. I'm strapped to the surgical table instead of sitting in the chair. Only that's not strictly true, because part of me is sitting in the chair. My lower body has been separated at the hips, and the bloody limbs sit in the chair as if waiting for the rest of me. The pain becomes apparent as I look down at where my legs used to be. Nathan steps in front of me, his hideous and deformed face grinning grotesquely. And as he goes to work on me, I find myself begging. I find myself apologizing and pleading and asking for his forgiveness. Mostly, I find myself begging for death. But I don't get it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and smash that like button to get notified every time I upload a new video.